The New York Times Management Reader, Hot Ideas and Best Practices from the New World of Business. Chapter 9, Case 1, Impossible Goals. Listening to Philip M. Condit and Harry C. Stonecipher talk about the difficulties facing the Boeing company, the global aerospace powerhouse and the national icon they jointly run, oddly brings to mind the feminist battle cry of the 1980s. They just don't get it. After an awful year of monumental production follows up, 4 billion in unexpected accounting charges and lots of talks about elusive recovery plans, the news from Boeing only seems to get worse. In December 1998, the company stunned investors in its 232,000 employees with the announcement that it would cut as many as 48,000 jobs by 2001 and still make only a negligible profit. Great word. The news from the nation's single largest exporter rippled across the country like the storms that poured rain on Seattle, Boeing's then hometown, and they head east. President Clinton weighed in with his concern about the company's health, and on Wall Street, shareholders who had been led by Boeing to believe the worst was over began selling in anger, even disgust. Boeing stock took a beating. This is one of the great American industrial franchises of the 20th century, said John Hayes, an analyst at the Independent Investment Association, an institution money manager that sold its stake of several millions Boeing shares in 1997. For the business to be in this kind of disarray, it's unfathomable. These guys have been doing this a long time. They should know how to build plans and at a profit. Yet in their first interview since announcing the latest cuts, Condit, the chairman and chief executive, and Stonecipher, the president and chief operation officer, COO, spoke that December, and if Boeing had no choice but to make the decisions that have laid it low, to sell hundreds of airplanes at cut rate price in 1995 and 1996, and then to nearly triple production rates, from 18 airplanes a month to the current record higher rate of 51. No one could have run this place successfully for the last year, says Stonecipher, the former chief executive of the McDonnell Douglas, who joined Boeing after it acquired McDonnell in 1997 for $16 billion, creating a national monopoly of large passenger jets and the world's biggest military contractor and an aerospace company, with more than 56 billion in revenues expected in 1998. The systems were overloaded to the point where it doesn't matter who was in charge, he said. You could have worked in a lot of different ways. The result would have been the same. Condit's credibility seemed especially weak because he had to revise so many of his public positions over the course of 1998. Yet, while contrite, he still have trouble, even in hindsight, viewing the company actions as a colossal blunder. I think we are very close to making, he said of the ill-fated ramp-up in production. So it isn't, gosh, you can look back and say it was clear you wouldn't have. Boeing 13's member board was set to meet on Monday in the wood-paneled boardroom where Condition and Stonecipher were talking, and for the first time in anyone's memory, as the Seattle Times pointed out in an editorial, the ouster of a Boeing chief executive was being openly discussed by employees and on Wall Street. If he was on the board, I would be taking a hard look at whether to keep him, said Bill Whitlow, an analyst at Safeco Asset Management in Seattle and manager of a fund that holds 67,500 Boeing shares. 7 of the outside board members declined to comment, 3 did not respond to telephone messaging, and 1 other board member could not be reached. While Condit acknowledged that was in the hot seat, he said that he was working harder than ever and he think a change on the topic made sense. I think we are better together than any one of us would be alone, he said, referring to Stonecipher a little later. I could not imagine a better partner. Still, if candidates they are numbered, Stonecipher may position to cap his long career at Boeing next chairman. That idea ranks main employee of the old Boeing, Heritage Boeing, in the company post-merger parlance because after years of brazen competition, they not McDonnell Douglas have prevailed in the marketplace. I have heard internal comments that, hey, we won, but now they are running the show, Whitlow said. Boeing loyalists especially resent that what they see as the high-handed Stonecipher, a blunt talker who became popular on Wall Street first by turning around the Sunstrand Corporation, America of aerospace components, and then by sharply improving McDonald's financial performance before selling the company to Boeing. As Boeing's problem worsened during 1998, Stonecipher's power appeared to have grown. He, higher than Condition, was seen as the man behind the departure of a number of Boeing executives with one Stonecipher is said to have clashed, including the longtime chief financial officer and the head of the commercial airplane division. Stonecipher, who have a large stake in McDonnell Douglas, was one of Boeing's largest shareholders. So was John F. McDonnell, the son of the one McDonald's founder, who, like Stonecipher, was on the Boeing board. Condit, like other board members who came from the old Boeing, owned relatively little stock. Investors and analysts credit Stonecipher with sharpening Boeing's focus on shareholder value. Boeing's decision to increase greatly its communication with Wall Street, disclose earnings targets, announcing large jobs cuts and buyback up to 15% of its stock at all, echo Stonecipher previews, is seen at Sunstrand and McDonald's. The company new candor, of course, contribute to its promises and predictions have failed to materialize. But Condit say he's still tough that Boeing should keep lines of communication open with investors. Stonecipher was also seen in Wall Street as a strong executive who holds his shares accountable, while Condit was widely viewed as a talented engineer who is out of his element running the country's 11th largest industrial company. In the interview in December 1998, Condit and Stonecipher dismissed talk about difference between them as idle gossip. Condit say that they leaned on each other and often swapped roles, but Stonecipher's job was to focus more on day-to-day operations while he concentrated on long-term strategy. Few people provide to the inner working of Boeing executive suite would comment on the relation between the men. Current and former Boeing executives are reluctant to criticize them. The two men could not be more different. Stone Cipher is tough talking, quick tempered, and unsentimental. He was raised modestly in the calm regions of eastern Tennessee and worked his way up through general electric for 27 years, rising to become head of its jet engine business before spending 7 years at SunStream and their McDonnell Douglas. He has been married to his Tennessee sweetheart for more than 40 years. Condition grew up comfortably as an only child in San Francisco, where his father was a chemist for Standard Oil. He joined Boeing in 1965 after getting a master's degree in aeronautical engineering from Princeton and was quickly identified as a golden boy destined for great things with the company. In addition to doing engineering work on a variety of airplanes, Condition has stints in sales and marketing. He was named president of Boeing in 1992, rising to chief executive in 1996 and to chairman in 1997. Has been divorced 3 times. While Stone Cipher is feared, Condish, who is known for his people skill, is genuinely like it. I'm a little more aggressive than Phil. Stone Cipher once told a group of potential investors in New York, I'm more likely to shoot you and then ask you your name. Phil is like to ask your name and then shoot you. Condition's crowing moment was the early of 1990s when he led the team that designed the 777, Boeing's newest and the most modern jetliner. In the course of that project, he promised an uncharacteristic degree of teamwork that he has since tried to spread to the entire company. A self-described lifelong learner, Condish received his PhD in 1997 from the Science University of Tokyo. He also not afraid to help Boeing executives, not the most introspective group, get in touch with their feelings. A few years ago, he hired David J. White, a poet and motivational speaker, to run workshops with top managers. In one meeting at Condit's home, the executives were asked to write down negative stories about Boeing and toss them into a bonfire so that only positive, inspirational stories that would remain. By December 1998, executives were probably tossing Boeing's last 5 quarterly earnings report into the blaze. The company's difficulties building commercial jets have prevented from capitalizing on one of the biggest sales booms ever. Tough Boeing has only one competition left. That was War Airbus Industry, the European consortium, and it is building more jets than ever. It said it would make hardly any money in 1999 and 2000 from selling them. Okay. Analysis says that by the time Boeing fixes its problem, demand will have dried up. In acquiring McDonnell Douglas, Condit wanted his rival large military operations, along with the space business of Rockwell International, which Boeing bought for $3.2 billion in 1996. They were supposed to help Boeing balance the ups and downs of the notoriously cyclical passenger airplane market. But even with all those new business, Boeing expected to earn only $1 billion this year, a meager 1.8% return of sales. In hindsight, it seems obvious that Boeing commercial airplane business has headed for trouble, given that the company was trying to do 2 years earlier, when demand for new planes began to pick up after a draw in the middle of 1990s, Boeing made a bold bid to gain market share by offering steep discounts. Executives believed that plans to overhaul Boeing's production system, which date to World War II and are still largely paper-based, would allow the company to lower the unit cost of each jet by 25%, so that would make a profit even at the low prices. As order poured in, Boeing was forced to increase production to 40 planes a month from 18 in a year and a half. Rather than help the efforts to consolidate 400 separate computer systems, track millions of parts and digitize thousands of drawings added to the rising confusion. Part shortage developed and work fell behind scheduling as thousands of New Yorkers. Part shortage developed and work fell behind scheduling as thousands of new workers hired to replace older, skilled laborers who took early retirement during the previous down cycle could not handle the load. At the same time, Boeing was trying to introduce several new models, each of which required certification by regulators in Washington and Europe, adding to the delays. In addition, many of its new orders were from new customers, which meant tens of thousands of hours of engineering work to customize the plane to their specifications. By early October 1997, Boeing assembly lines around Seattle had sized up. The company says it would halt production of its 747 and 737 jets for a month to catch its breath, along with costly changes of the new 737 that resulted in a stunning $2.6 billion in accounting charges. Investors were angry. Boeing has been insisting for months that reports of production difficulties were exaggerated. Over the next year, as the airplane division struggled to recover, a pattern developed. Executives led by Condits would try to put the best face on the situation, but just when it seemed things were turning around, the company would drop another bombshell. A low point came in July 1998, when Boeing realized its second quarter earnings and, for the first time, offered earnings guidance to Wall Street analysts. While most analysts were estimating that Boeing would earn 1.64 a share in 1998 and 3.24 a share in 1999, down from the high as 5 before the production difficulties arose. Condish said the company expected to make 1.01 a share in 1998 and 2.02 a share in 1999. Boeing share price plunged and analysts were irate. The next day, when Condish met in Boston with institutional investors and analysts, one analyst all but called him a liar. At a similar session in New York, another analyst implied that Condish was deliberately trying to drive down the price of the stock to buy on the ship. Shaken, Condish returned to Seattle and told colleagues he never wanted to be put in such a position. But his credibility has continued to deteriorate. In the spring of 1998, Condish strongly defended Ronald B. Woodward, the head of the commercial airplane division, when many people were calling for his head. 5 months later, he ousted Woodward, who had been in line to become Boeing's president. Insiders now say that Condit's mistake was not firing Woodward sooner. Boyd E. Given, Boeing's chief financial officer for 32 years, was also forced to resign after reportedly clashing with Stonecipher. I thought they shot the messenger, said Dean Dorton, a retired Boeing executive. Given were replaced by Deborah C. Hopkins, former chief financial officer for General Motors Europe, who started work in December 1998. Condit that he finds fault with himself. It's underestimating the challenge of transforming Boeing from a company of the Cold War era, which valued engineering performance above all, to one that also values financial performance. Now, he say we have unhooked ourselves from market share intentionally and say what we are about is running a profitable company. Condit and Stonecipher said that the bad news in December 1998 was unavoidable because the economic downturn in Asia would force the company to cut back its production in 2000 for more than a half. The explanation is puzzling. For more than a year, the company's assessment had been much less pessimistic than those of outsiders. Then, when some experts began to see that conditions in Asia were improving, Boeing was saying the situation was worse than ever. I think most of the world is really in denial about what's going on in Asia, Stonecipher said. What really alarmed investors about Boeing in 1998 disclosure was the company acknowledgement that margin on its commercial airplane would be even lower in 2000 than in 1999. Boeing attributed the deterioration to expectation that would sell more of its new model, which commanded lower margin than older planes. But the announcement raised analysts' concerns that it would take Boeing longer than anticipated to make its assembly lines more efficient. I read Alan Mulally, the new head of the commercial airplane division, has delayed the production modernization program. Instead, the company will try to deliver planes on time and avoid penalties. We are probably the least efficient we have ever been making airplanes. Mulally said in a December 1998 interview, thousands of extra workers are on the payroll simply to get plane out the door, he said. With the layoff warning, many of those people are fearing for their jobs, even as Boeing depends on them to help it out of a jam. It's a Helluva Christmas present to give Boeing employees, said Bill Johnson, president of Mechanists Union, local that represents 39,000 Boeing workers. The union, which struck against Boeing for 69 days in 1995, was gearing up for negotiations in August 1999, and it's believed that had Boeing over a barrel. The company wanted to introduce a new work week to cut overtime and institute complements and health insurance. The union would have none of it. We are not going to be mean, Johnson said. We are just going to make sure we get the things we want. They cannot afford a strike in September. I see them somewhat of the defensive already. Ken Condit ride out of the storm. On paper, the odds look to be in his favor. Only 4 of the 13 board members, including Stonecipher, came from McDonnell Douglas. 8 are Boeing holdovers, presumably with loyalty to Condit, including such pilots for the Northwest as George Weyerhaeuser, the paper magnate, and Charles M. Piggott, the former chairman of a truck maker, Packard Incorporation. Even with Stone Cipher in the executive suite, there is no clear succession plan. He would be popular with investors but face mandatory retirement in 2001. The only other obvious candidate with Boeing is Mulally, who had his hand full turning around the jet business and not yet considering seasoned enough to be chief executive. Bringing a new leader into Boeing from outside would be a dramatic step from the proud company, but it could hasten chance that Condit and his predecessors have talked about implement for the last decade with little apparent progress. Boards really are very compassionate, Stone Cipher said. The moment the board decides that somebody else can get this thing done for them, we will be out of here the next day. Is Boeing at that point today? Stone Cipher did not hesitate to answer. No, he replied. Lawrence Zuckerman, December 13, 1998.